Welcome to the Modern JavaScript 2020 course, part 5. In this part of the course we're going to be covering JavaScript loops. And welcome to BAINS INFOTEC world. Learn and earn more with our channel. Your course instructor is Sam. He's an IT expert with over 20 years of experience, and we aim to bring you lots more educational content. So this is part 5, JavaScript loops. Okay, section 1.1, JavaScript loops. For loop. JavaScript for loop runs a section of code over and over again for a number of times that you specify, and it basically starts off with an initial value. For example, you can say x equals 1, and then it will test your initial value, your x variable, to see if it's satisfies a certain condition. For example, you might want to print some code, or you might want to print something 5 times, or calculate something for 5 times. So you could go from x equals 1 to x equals 5, and what you do is initially you would say x equals 1, and then you would say is x larger than 5, and say if it is x larger than 5, then stop running the loop. And then the next bit of the code would say increment. When you run the loop for 1 time, you increase the value of x by 1. So x goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each time you run the loop and you print and you do whatever you print or do whatever calculations you want to do. So JavaScript loops run a section of the code repeatedly based upon a test condition, repeatedly run some code while the value of the test condition variable is true. For example, while x is less than or equal to 5, you would carry on running the loop, and for each run of the loop you would increase the value of the loop, so that after 5 runs it will stop. So the for loop. The for loop runs some code for a fixed number of repetitions. The while loop runs code repeatedly while some condition is true. The while loop is another kind of loop, and this loop, for example, says while x is equal to 1, keep on running this loop, and it will keep on running the loop forever if x equals 1. So looking at this diagram below, we can see that it starts off with a for command, the for loop, and we do a test. For example, we test the value of x, and if it's valid, so if it's x equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we run the code, and then if say x is equal to 1, then once we've run the code once, we loop back to the beginning and we say, okay, run it again. So we say test the value again, so x equals 2 now. So okay, so that's valid, so let's run the code again, and you keep on running the code until at the end here we'll do is increment the value of x by 1 again, and it will eventually go to 6. And then you come back to the beginning of the loop and you say is x equal to or less than 5, and it will be not true. So the test condition will fail, and what will happen is you'll get result will be false, and you'll go into your finish section, which is finishing your for loop, and then you'll you go into your next statement in your lines of code. The for statement is written as like this. You have a for command with an open bracket, and then you have a closed bracket to finish the that section. This bracket section is known as a parameter section, and in here we have 3 parameters. The first parameter is the initial condition, so here you would say for initial condition we will say initial test value, so we say x equals 1, then we would say test the value, and then we say is x, is the value of x acceptable. So if it's equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we will say okay, keep on running the loop, and then the next part of the parameter section is modifying the test value. So at this point you will say x equals x plus 1, so increase the value of x, and this will keep on running the loop. And then down for the next section you've got curly brackets, and that's your code section, and what you do is you say run the code, and you keep on running the code in a loop until that's finished. So you have the run code section here, so which starts with an open curly bracket, then you have all your code in the middle, and you have a curly bracket closing your code section. So let's move on to the while loop now. Okay, this is the while loop, and in this we say while some condition is true, keep on running the loop. And the way this works is like this. So we say while the test value is true, or the test condition is true, we run the code, and then we go back to the beginning and run the code again. We go back to the beginning and we test the value again, and if it's true we run the code, then we go back and we go back to the beginning and test the value again, and true, and run the code and go back to the beginning. Now when we test the value, if the if the condition is false, if the test fails, then we say it's false, so the condition is failed, so we're not going to run the code anymore, and we go to the finish section, and that command is finished. But obviously in this test value, if this test value never changes, so if x equals 1 for example, and it never changes, then what will happen is the loop will run forever and you'll be stuck in that loop for infinity. So what you need to do is, in your code section, you need to change the value of x each time you run the loop. So if the first value of x is 1 equals 1, then next time at the end of running your code in your code section, run code section, what you do is for example, you could increase the value of x and say x equals x plus 1. That would increase the value, and then when you go around the loop, when you do the test is testing x equals 2, or x is, you have your test value is going to be x equals 2, and if that's valid, then you can carry on running the loop. And if it's not valid, then you can stop running the loop. And the way this is written is like this. The other thing you have to remember is that when you start your while loop, the value of x is has already been set. So the while loop starts here and tests the value, and so here the value of x has already been set to 1, and you didn't do it in the while loop, and you didn't do it in the test values section, and you didn't do it in the run code. So before you run the while loop, you have to set the value of x or your test condition to whatever you want it to be. So not say you would set the value x to x equals 1. So you have to run a extra line of code before you run the while loop. Otherwise your test value will never change again, because your test value hasn't been set. So when you come into this while loop, what you say is x is less than or equal to 5, and what's the value of x at that point? Who set the value of x? if you don't know, then the value of x could be 1,000. And when you say is x equal to or less than 5, for example, if some other program or the value has been set in some other function, and you get into this while loop, the value of x could be anything. Could be null, could be 0, could be 1,000, could be minus, could be anything. So if when you do this test for say x equals less than or equal to 5, it's going to fail, and it's going to go straight into the false condition, and it's going to finish immediately, and your code is never going to be run. So what you need to do is, before you run the while loop, before it, you need to set the value of your test condition to whatever initial value you want it to be set to. That's very important. Whereas if you compare it to the for loop command, in the for loop you had 3 conditions, 3 sections. You set the initial value, you set the test condition, and you set the modifying condition value. So you had the initial value was x equals 1, then you had is x less than or equal to 5, and then you had your modifying value condition was, your modifying statement was x equals x plus 1, and then after that you ran the loop. So that was your control section. Okay, the syntax for the while loop is like this. You do while, curly brackets, test condition. So in here you'll have your condition x is less than or equal to 5, for example. If that's true, then run your code, and this loop will keep on running forever. So what you can do is, if you're in this loop, what you want to do is, once you've run your main code, the last thing you do before this curly bracket is you change the value of x. So you say x equals x plus 1, for example, and if you want if within this code you decide that you don't want to run the loop anymore, what you can do is set the value of x to be 1,000, for instance. So if at the end of this code section you said x equals 1,000, then what will happen is, when it goes back to the beginning, to the test condition, it will see x is less than or equal to 5, is fails, and then this loop, it won't run this loop anymore. So go into the test value, you'll find it's false, and finish running the loop. So that's another way of breaking out of the loop. Okay, the next one is do while loop. This is similar to the while loop, but the only difference really is that instead of testing at the beginning of testing your value at the beginning of the loop, you test it at the end. And in the do while loop, code is run once before the test is checked. If test condition fails, then the code is not run again. The loop is run repeatedly while the test condition remains true. So let's have a look at this one then. So we start off with the do command, and in there we say do this, and we say run the code, and then what we do is we test the value. So for example, x, we say is x less than or equal to 5, and then if it's x is larger than 5, then that returns a false condition, and then we finish the loop. So what we've guaranteed to do is we say we always run the loop once at least. So in here we do run the code. So we're definitely running the code once, and then we test it. And then if the test is false, we finish running the code. If the test value is, test condition is true, so that says true, so we go back to the beginning of our loop and we run the code again, and then we test, and then we run the code and test, and so on. The syntax is like, for this is like this: do, then curly brackets, put your code in here that you want to run, while, and then in curly brackets here, then normal brackets here, while the test condition is true. So you see, we do this, we say you run the code first and then test it. And same thing applies in this, that when you're testing your value, that value has to be modified at some point. If the value never changes, then it will keep on running the loop forever. So you modify your test value in your code section here. And same thing applies. The value of your test, the test value, at what point do you set the, assign the test value? Well, you can't do it in your own code. If you do it in your own code and so say x equals 1, then, every time you test it, it's going to be 1. And so you can, what you need to do is you need to assign your test value before you run the do while loop. Before the do command, you need to set the value of your test condition, test value, and then when you go into run code, you run the code once, and then at the end of your run code section, you change the value of x. So you can say x equals x plus 1, and then at this point it says test the value. So you say, okay, value of x is now equal to 2. So we keep on going until the value of x here is 6, for example. The last time we set 6, it was failed test, and it will go down to false and finish. So the code runs when the value is 1, increases it to its x value to 2. This test value of 2. So that's okay, and then run again. Value is 3 this time, okay. Value is 4 this time, okay. Value is 5 this time, okay. And then value is 6, so that's not okay. So let's finish running the code. And that's the do while loop. It's very simple, but it's useful in certain cases. What you can do is, if you're, for example, if you're in the middle of the run code section and you decide in the run code section that you don't want to carry on running the loop, there's a number of things that you can do. You can use what's called the break command to break out of the loop, and what that does is to cancel the loop while it is running. Use the break command in the loop, in the run code section. Insert the break command where you want to stop running the loop. Okay, so in our diagram here we can see this. We start with the do command, and then we run the code, and in the code we decide, okay, that's enough, we don't want to run any more loop, we don't want to run the loop anymore, and we want to break out of it. So you put the break command in your code section, and it breaks out of it, and it finishes running, and it carries on running, finishes running your do while loop. Alternatively, if you have a do command and you run the code and you have no break statement, it will carry on, test the value, go to true, keep on running the code as normal. And the other example of this is where you have a do statement, you run the code, and in there you have a break command, and that will cause it to finish running this loop, and then after that you have your while test condition. Okay, so we have do command, do this, do run your code, do we have a break command in this code? Yes, break, finish running the loop. Okay, we say, okay, we want to run the loop again, do command, run the code. Is there a break command in this? No. We carry on. We go to a test our value, go true, go around the loop as normal. The way this is written is do run the code section and put a break in the code section where you want to break out the loop, and otherwise keep on running the loop while the test condition is true. Similarly, we can continue running the loop, and for that we use the continue command. So what this will do is, if you're halfway in your running your code section and you decide I don't want to run the remaining section of this code section, you can skip to the end and go to the test condition and run a new loop. So what you do is you continue command, you skip to the beginning of a loop while it is running, use the continue command in the run code section, the continue command, place the continue command where you want to skip the loop that is running and start a new loop run. The way we do this is like this. So you have your do command, it's normal, you have your run code section, you test your value, and if that value is true, then we go run the loop again. If the value of your test value is false, we finish running the loop. So that's the value of x that we're testing, and we run the loop, and then we get into our loop section, run code section, and in this code section we can put a continue command, and we say halfway through this we can say continue, which means don't run the rest of this code, just go straight to the test value and run a new loop. And the way that's written is do run code continue while test. So this is the way we go. So we got do run the code, test the value of x, run the loop again, run the code. Is there a continue command? Okay, so we'll go straight back to the beginning of the loop, and the way we do that is by testing the value again, and we end up coming back to the beginning of the loop. Code for this is do, so we do the run the code section. If we are continuing there, we'll skip running that loop, and then we go on to the test condition and say while the test condition is true, keep on running the loop as normal. The for in command, this works like this. When you're dealing with lists and arrays, where you have lists of objects and you're not dealing with numbers which go from 1 to 5 or whatever, what will happen is, for example, this is very useful for iterating over a number of objects or items and running some code for each one. So we say for in, when dealing with arrays or lists of objects, use the for in loop to loop through the list of objects and run the same code on each item. When all the items in the list have been used up and processed, the for in loop will exit. So we start off with, say we have an array with a list of cars, and we have three cars in this array, and what we want to do is for each car we want to run some code. And the way we do this is, before we run this loop, we'll fill in our array, we'll populate our array with the list of cars, and then we'll run this for loop. We'll say for x, so x is the name of your array, for x object number, for the first object in x, which is x bracket 0, run the code, then loop back, and then do it for the next car in the array. So that will be x brackets 1, run the code, and then loop back, and then do it for the next object in the item in the array, which will be x brackets 2, run the code, and then once it's processed all of the objects in the array, it will say all done, and then it will finish. And the way we write this is for x in object, which is your array, run the code section. And the way we can describe this is like this. So for x, where x is an array, loop through the array. So go from 0, 1, set 1 to 0, set using the array x0, x1, x2, run the code for each item and process the items by running the code and looping around. And then once you've processed all of the items in the array x0, 1 and 2, you say that's all done. So we say all done, and then we go to finish, and our loop is finished. Okay, in this section we're going to look at JavaScript pop-ups. Pop-ups are basically Windows dialog boxes that pop up and give the user a message. For example, it can give you a message. You can ask you to say, make a choice like OK, cancel. For example, you may be printing something and you can say OK to print or don't cancel to print. Or you can ask the user for some piece of information. You can ask the user for their name, their password, and whatever information you want. So these kind of boxes are called, the alert box is the one that gives you a message, and the confirm box is the one that gives you the OK, cancel, and the prompt box asks you for an input. When you want to communicate with the user, you can use Windows dialog boxes. To show a message, we use the alert box. To confirm an action like OK, cancel, we use the confirm box. And to ask for an input, we use the prompt box. So we've just covered JavaScript pop-ups, and we've looked at three types. There's the alert box, the confirm box, and the prompt box. Alert, confirm, and prompt. Okay, so this is the alert box. The alert box is used to display information box to the user via Windows dialog box, which has an OK prompt button. So looking at this, we have the command, the syntax, the code for the alert command is like this. The alert in JavaScript, the alert open brackets, your message string, and then close brackets and semicolon. And what you will get on the screen is this. You'll get a dialog box saying, this page says, hi there, this is an alert box. Click on the OK button to get rid of the alert box. Okay, the next one is the confirm box, and here the confirm box, the user is asked to ask a user a yes/no question. For example, print, OK to print, or cancel to print. And examples that we have for this are shown here. You've got a confirm box, so this page, and it asks you for OK or cancel, and if you say OK, it will say OK, printing now. If you say cancel, OK, not printing. And the code for this is like this. So you, for example, you can do x equals confirm. Confirm is the dialog box. Hi there, give it a string, and a closing bracket. So what happens is when the confirm will pop up the dialog box, and if you click OK, then x is assigned return. The confirm box returns a value of 1, which is assigned to x. If you say cancel, then the value is 0, and that's assigned to x. And what you can do is test the value of x after the confirm statement, and if it's equal to true, which is 1, then you know the user clicked on the OK button, and you can run your command, whatever you want, like document write, style color green, OK printing now, which is what we have here, OK printing now. Now if we say x is not true, the exclamation mark means not, so x is not true, and then we say OK. If the user clicked on the cancel button, then we say document write, h1 style color red text, and we say OK not printing, which is what we have here, OK not printing. And it's simple as that. So the dialog comes up with, hey, this page says, hi there, this is a confirm print box. Print now, and you say OK or cancel. And you have a choice to click on one on the OK button or the cancel button. Okay, we're moving on to the prompt box. Prompt box. The user use this to ask a user for input, and the way this is done is like this. So you get a dialog box saying, this page says, hi there, this is a prompt box. For example, type your name. Click OK to when you've typed it. Click cancel to if you don't want to type anything. And once you type something into dialog box and click OK, and that value is returned back to your program. And what you get on the output is whatever you typed in is printed out at the screen in this example. The way you would do this is in code this is x equals prompt, so that's your Windows dialog prompt, and you give it a string, say this is the message you want to be in the window, and then the next value is going to be first, that's going to be your message, and the next value is going to be the help in text or tips in the field. So here you've got type your name, so you've got type your name, and that's telling the user what to do, what to type in this name in this field. And once you've done that, once you type in James, then x equals James, whatever you type in here. If you type cancel, then x equals 0, and you can test for that. And the next line we can write document.write, h1 style code color green, you typed, and then we put in x, the value of x. So let's go over that again. We have x equals prompt, that's your dialog box, hi there, that's the message, and then we have the help, the instructions to what to type into the field, type your name. And then once we've done that, the user types in their name, James, that's your prompt box, Hi, this is a prompt box. Type your name, click OK to cancel. Once he's typed in James here, it says OK. Then what will happen is X will be equal to James. Then the next line we write document.write. We have some HTML here, H1 text, style, color, green text. Then we have some text, you typed. And then after that, we put in our variable X. We say print out the value of X. And what happens is in the output, browser output, we get this. We get you typed James. Okay, in this section we're going to be covering JavaScript functions. Moving on to JavaScript functions, which are very powerful and very useful and essential for JavaScript programming. Introduction, defining a function, function return statement, and function variable scope. Defining function, function return statement, function variable scope. All JavaScript code will be run when the browser loads the web page and passes the script tags, unless it is a function. So what will happen is, if you have some code in a script block in your web page, the browser will run the code immediately. The only way to stop that is to put the code that you want to run in a function, and then that code will be just loaded into memory, but it won't be run by the browser. And when you actually call the function later on, then that code will be run by the browser. To control when some code is run, you can put the code in function and call the function when it's required. The order of loading script code is as follows. Write the function code in external files. So if you write the JavaScript code in external files, that will be loaded first. If you write the code in your head tag, then that will be loaded next. In your HTML page, that'll be loaded next. If you write the function code between your body text, then that will be loaded next. And you have to be careful about writing function code because of the timing of the browser. The function code must be processed by the browser before it is called. So if you've written a function in your JavaScript, and then you call the function before the browser has loaded that code, then it will fail because it will say it can't find the function. So you need to make sure that going from top to bottom, that you define the function first and then you call it. If you try to call the function before it is processed, you will get an error message. Same applies to HTML objects like HTML elements. Like you may have a piece of text in your H1 text in your HTML, and if you at the beginning of your HTML document you start changing the value of that HTML text, trying to reference it, what will happen is it will fail because the browser has not loaded that HTML element into its memory yet, because what it's done is it's just processed the JavaScript, and it's further down the page is your HTML element and it hasn't loaded it, so your JavaScript reference to that element in the document object model is going to fail. So in some cases you may need to put function code at the end of the HTML document. Quite often when this happens, when you get lots of errors in your code, JavaScript code, and you're wondering what's going on, it's usually a timing issue, because what will happen is the JavaScript is trying to reference an object which the browser hasn't loaded up into memory yet, because it hasn't finished processing the whole page. So there is a way to test for that. There's something called a ready function, ready status. You can run the ready function and that will tell your JavaScript that the page has finished loading, and then you can run. So you can say check if ready, then run this function, and that will avoid any errors, any timing errors. So that's very important. Timing is very important. To declare a function, so that means to write a new function in JavaScript and so that the browser will process it and put it into memory. This is what you do. So the syntax for writing a function is as follows. You write function, space, name of the function, and then in open brackets you put the parameters, and these are the lists of values or parameters that you want to pass to your function. So if you wanted to print a document, for example, your function was to print document, then you would put the name of the document in between these brackets, and then in the curly brackets you have your actual code that does the processing or the printing. And what will happen in this code is it will pick up the name that you've passed as a parameter in the document, and it will process it, as per the code is written. So you have name of the function, you have your parameter list, and you have your code. And for example, in this case, so we have function x, for example, A, B, C, that's the name of your parameters. So that could be like the name of 3 documents, document A, document B, and document C. And then in your main code section, what we'll do is we'll say print document A, print document B, and print document C, and then it will finish. And that's how your code in the middle here knows what parameters are, is by the position of these. So what we've done is we've labeled the functions x, and we've labeled the parameters as A, B, C. So in here we'd have file name. When we call the function, we'll put document 1, document, then here document 2, document 3. And this will look at the value of A and say, okay, that's equal to document 1, print it. Then it will look at the value of B and say, okay, the value of B is document 2, print that. And then we'll look at the value of C, and it will say, okay, the value of C is document 3, print that. And that's how parameters are passed and functions are run, declared. So this is function declaration. Okay, next section is function calls. So we've declared the function. We've told the browser, and by using JavaScript, that there is a function here now. And so to call that function, to print those documents, this is what we do. We say, it's done like this. So function calls. So function is called using the function name and parameters as follows. So we say x is the name of your function, and in brackets we put in the first parameter, which is A, going to become A, then the second parameter, which is going to become B, and then the third parameter, which is going to become C, and then we put a semicolon. And that is enough to call your function. So when JavaScript sees this, it says, okay, there's a function here called x, and it's got 3 parameters, and it will take those 3 parameters and run this function with those 3 parameters. So the name of the function is x, the parameters are these 3, and we've got a code example at the bottom here. So we've got function xy, So we're declaring a function. Whenever we have a function keyword, that means we're declaring the function. We're not calling it, we're declaring it. We're telling the browser that there is a function that called a new function. And then we give it a value of x, for example. So we say the function is called x. And it has a parameter y. So it only has one parameter. And in the code we type in whatever, we put in the code whatever we want it to do. So in the code we have a prompt command. And it says, hi there, this is a prompt. And then what it will do is, it will put your parameter that was passed y in the prompt command. And then we say the prompt command, and then the next line is saying write, document write, so it's saying write this document write. So write out this text to the browser. So document write h1 and value of that, which was passed by the prompt command. So the next bit that we do, okay, so we've just run that command, and what we get is this. Hi there, this is a prompt, type in your name. So we can type in a name here. So let's type in a name, James, and click OK. And we get you typed James. So yeah, so that's how it works. So this is our code example for this section, and let's click on that. So we get this dialog box, and we type in, say, Susan, and we say, so we hide out, this is a prompt box, we type in Susan, click OK, and we get you typed Susan. Okay, so let's try this one again. Run the command again, and this time we type in let's type in Trump, and hi there, this is a prompt box. Type in your details, click on the OK button, and what happens is you get you typed Trump. Amazing. Okay, let's go back to our previous page, and if we go forward, so you typed Trump. Now we have a look at the source code for this web page, and we can see the commands that we've been running. So we have doc type HTML, HTML body, so function intro, which is just some HTML text, which is what we've placed here. And then we've got P style, paragraph style, modern JavaScript 5a, and this is what we've got here, modern JavaScript 5a, and then we've got a script tag, so we've got text, script type, text JavaScript, and then we've got a function declaration down here, function x, brackets y, and there it says prompt, hi there, this is a prompt box, and pass it the value of y, and okay, so we say in the function we say document write, so print to the web page, some h1 text like so, and print out also whatever we typed into the prompt box. And then next line is this one. In this line this is how we call the function. So we declare the function like this by using the function keyword, and then we call the function by using the name of the function and passing parameters. And what that will do is so when we call this function, it will take this parameter and go to this function declaration, put the parameter in brackets here in the value of y, and then it will run this section of code. So Z says prompt, hi there, this is prompt box, and type in the name, the value, the prompt here, and the prompt that we've set for the value of y is type in your name. And that's what we saw here. If we refresh this, see what we get here is type your name. This is a prompt. Hi there, this is a prompt box, type your name. Okay, cancel. If we go back to our code, so our function we've declared as x with a parameter y, and in the code we said z, that's a that's a variable that we've created inside the function, and then we say hi there, this is a prompt box, and we pass it the value of y, the parameter, and remember we set the value of y, the parameter, down here when we put it into the brackets when we call the function. So y is going to be equal to type your name, and that's going to appear in here in the dialog box here in the middle. That's your value of y that's appearing out, popping up. And then when we say okay, document write, so this is a prompt box with the parameter. So you complete the prompt box, and then the value, the name that we type into the prompt box is going into the value in variable z. And next line we say document write some strings, some text in color green, you typed, so that's a string, and then we add the variable y, and the variable y in the document write command is basically the name that we typed into the dialog box. And this is our calling function, x brackets calling our function x with the parameter in the middle, string. Okay, and if we go back to our other page, so this is our function. Hi there, this is a prompt box, type in your name. So if we say, if we type in something here, let's type in George, and we say OK, click on OK, and we get on our output, we get you typed George, and we've got this text at the top which we set in our HTML in our program source code. We set this we print this text out at the beginning just as an introduction, and then this is our function. Our function is doing this, you typed George. Okay, that's all for this section. I hope you enjoyed that, and please like and subscribe to our channel so we can bring you lots more educational content, and we'll see you next time. Have a nice day.